141. Power of Talismans. With Xiao Chen's cultivation as a superior grade martial master, it was not just difficult for him to kill a rank 5 spirit beast, there was virtually no chance of success. Is the requirements of Heavenly Saber Pavilion so high? Xiao Chen asked himself, feeling suspicious. He frowned slightly. If he really tried to complete this mission, he might not even have a 10% chance of survival. Xiao Chen sighed and slowly pulled out the lunar shadow saber from its scabbard. A cold gleam flashed on the black blade. The sharp blade was able to cut hair that landed on it. Xiao Chen gently caressed the blade as a pretty figure appeared in his head, thinking of everything she had done for him. Soon, his gaze appeared resolute. He muttered to himself, regardless of the reason you sealed yourself, I will do my best to wake you up. I will never cause you to cry, even at the expense of my life. This is a promise. From the moment he held the lunar shadow saber and received the Thunder Emperor's inheritance, this was a promise he needed to keep. Ka Ca. Xiao Chen placed the lunar shadow saber back in the scabbard. He then took the dragon seizing hand he obtained from Yan Qianyan out from the universe ring and started to read through it. This was an earth-ranked martial technique that required one to have a specific inherited martial spirit. It was similar to Xiao Chen's dragon subduing slash. However, Xiao Chen had the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula. The lack of the specific martial spirit would not obstruct him from using it. In the situation where one could not use a heaven-ranked martial technique, an earth-ranked martial technique was the strongest martial technique. Furthermore, the inherited martial techniques of an innate bloodline noble clan were much stronger. This dragon seizing hand was much stronger than the ancient martial techniques Xiao Chen obtained in the ancient remnants. Xiao Chen read carefully for half the night, comprehending it. Pu Si. Suddenly, he made a move. The changing character formula and dragon seizing hand both started circulating together. Xiao Chen shouted and sent a palm strike forward. A huge black hand appeared and smashed the stone table in the courtyard into bits. Pieces of stone became shrapnel, flying everywhere. Xiao Chen pulled his hand back, revealing a faint smile. After obtaining the martial technique manual, it was much easier to use the Battle Sage Origin to use the attack. Xiao Chen continued testing in the backyard. Aside from the dragon seizing hand, he also used the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula to replicate Ji Chengkong's astral swordplay, Duanmu Qing's inherited martial spirit, and Hua Yunfei's bloody death below heaven. In the end, after trying a few times, he discovered he was able to execute them. However, the exhaustion of essence was great, it was not easily executable. As for the dragon seizing hand, because he had the martial technique manual and understood the way to circulate the technique, he required less essence to execute it. Only under such a scenario, would the martial technique would be worth using. After exhausting his essence, Xiao Chen did not enter a state of cultivation to absorb spirit energy. He took out an inferior grade spirit stone and absorbed it completely. His essence immediately recovered to peak state. After Xiao Chen completely absorbed the energy from the spirit stone, the pool of water in his dantian visibly increased in size. This was a surprise for him. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. No wonder everyone likes spirit stones. These things are very useful for cultivation. Furthermore, there were no side effects. In the future, I should absorb one every day. I should not just leave them laying around. Only Xiao Chen could say words like this and not feel heartache. Even the noble clan disciples did not dare be that extravagant. After Xiao Chen completed his recovery of essence, he started to practice the dragon seizing hand. When he exhausted his essence, Xiao Chen would use a spirit stone to recover his essence. There was no waste at all. After a long time, Xiao Chen executed the dragon seizing hand hundreds of times. He accidentally discovered some small tricks of the martial technique. When the huge hand attacked the opponent, he could make it form an appropriate gesture. This way, it would be more mighty. After discovering the trick, Xiao Chen was extremely excited. He practiced the dragon seizing hand from day to night, until he was able to feel relaxed as he proficiently made the dragon seizing hand turn into a fist. He had already reached such a level using only one day of time. Aside from having the changing character formula, the main reason he was able to do so was the pile of depleted spirit stones on the ground. The spirit stones Yan Qianyan intend to use over a period of 6 months were consumed by Xiao Chen within a day. What kind of expression would Yan Qianyan in the underworld make if he knew? The morning sun rose from the east. Xiao Chen woke up from a deep sleep. After washing, Xiao Chen took out the horn of the young golden lion king and started carving it. When challenging a spirit beast with the strength of a martial saint, Xiao Chen did not dare be careless. He thought about it and decided he should make a golden lion king sculpture. Without Yu Ying's dragon Qi, a sculpture of Princess Ying Yu would not be as strong. However, as the golden lion king horn came from the golden lion king in the first place, controlling it would be easier. This time, Xiao Chen did not carve it in a rush, carving as he was walking. He was very meticulous with the carving, every hair and every detail could be clearly seen. After some time, he carved a realistic-looking golden lion king sculpture. Xiao Chen smiled as he put it away into the universe ring. Then, he took out an ink bottle and poured the golden holy beast's blood into it. After that, he sliced his hand and let his essence blood mix with the golden holy beast's blood. Xiao Chen drew talismans again. In a situation where his cultivation realm was not higher, if he wanted to raise the might of the talismans he could only raise the quality of the materials. The golden lion king had the bloodline of an ancient golden holy beast. Its blood was much stronger than a regular spirit beast's blood. When using it to draw talismans, its might would be increased by at least half. After he completely mixed the golden holy beast's blood with his essence blood, Xiao Chen took out a brush and paper. He focused and started to draw, stroke by stroke. There was a golden light on the tip of the brush. Xiao Chen drew very slowly, but his movements were continuous. His motions seemed very natural, it seemed perfect. When he finally completed it, it was done in one breath. He successfully completed a rank 3 lightning attribute talisman. Xiao Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he breathed. Drawing talismans was the most tiring thing to do. He had to be completely focused and could not rush. If there were even the tiniest error, all the work would be for naught. Furthermore, it exhausted a lot of essence. Xiao Chen rested for a period of time before continuing to draw talismans. He drew a total of 20-odd talismans. He was quite unfortunate towards the end and failed many of them. His success rate was only about 50%. After Xiao Chen completely exhausted his essence, he took out an inferior grade spirit stone and used it. After a moment, his essence was completely refilled again. The clear pool of water in his dantian increased in size again. Xiao Chen already reached the peak of superior grade martial master. As long as Xiao Chen wanted to, he would be able to advance to martial grand master at any time. This was the wonder of spirit stones. After preparing everything, Xiao Chen quickly made his way to the outside of the city. He removed the wooden identity token and showed it to the guard, allowing him to pass unobstructed. Evil Wind Valley was a very suitable place for outer sect disciples to train. It was near the west entrance of the city. There were many outer disciples gathered there, forming groups. There were even a few people who invited Xiao Chen to join them. Xiao Chen smiled faintly as he rejected them. His task could only be completed alone. If there were wounds from other people on the spirit beast's corpse, he would have been considered to have failed his task. There were many people going to Evil Wind Valley. Xiao Chen casually chose a group and followed behind. He was not worried about getting lost at all. The pace of the group was very fast. They arrived at Evil Wind Valley in an hour. Xiao Chen was surprised. The exterior of Evil Wind Valley was different from what he imagined. This exterior actually seemed like a marketplace. There were many people selling their wares by the two sides. The ground was covered in cloths with all sorts of herbs, spirit cores, or spirit beasts parts for sale. There, people were all wearing the Heavenly Saber Pavilion outer disciple uniform. Occasionally, there would be merchants coming to bargain on the prices. It was extremely bustling and noisy. Selling the most complete map of Evil Wind Valley. The distributions of spirit beasts and herbs are marked on it. Lowest price in the market, definitely the lowest price. A loud shout attracted Xiao Chen's attention. A map of Evil Wind Valley. That was something Xiao Chen urgently needed. Xiao Chen walked over in a casual manner. He did not reveal any anxious expressions or movements at all. This was a trick to buying things. You could not let the other party realize your true intentions. The person running the stall was a youth. He was wearing the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Outer Disciple uniform. When he saw Xiao Chen walk over, he called out warmly. Xiao Chen took a look at the map and inspected it carefully. After a while, he asked, "Why are there no rank 5 spirit beasts marked on the map?" The young man smiled. "You must be new. The rank 5 spirit beasts in Evil Wind Valley do not have fixed locations. Furthermore, outer disciples would not dare to engage a rank 5 spirit beast. Wouldn't that just be seeking death? An outer disciple would not engage a rank 5 spirit beast. Why was this different from what Zhe Yunbin said?" Xiao Chen placed down the map and asked, "Isn't the end-of-year exam for outer sect disciples killing a rank 5 spirit beast?" The youth revealed a shocked expression. "How is that possible? The end-of-year exam normally involves killing a number of rank 4 spirit beasts. After a certain number is achieved, then one will pass. Because different spirit beasts are set every year, there will be some changes in the number needed. However, no matter how much it changes, I have never heard of any year's exam requiring a rank 5 spirit beast. Isn't that just seeking death? Even for an inner sect disciple, the instructors would advise them to flee as far as they could." "Old bastard, you actually lied to me." Xiao Chen cursed angrily in his heart. He did not expect a senior like Zhe Yunbin to have such a devious plan, intending to kill him. "Brother, I believe you must have been cheated by someone. The strength of a rank 5 spirit beast is the equivalent of a martial saint. How can we be an opponent for it? I would advise you not to do anything silly," that person said out of kindness. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He only smiled faintly, just casually asking, "Thank you, brother, for reminding. My name is Yi Chen. I have not asked for your name yet." "Lu Chen, just an inadequate disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Outer Sect." Xiao Chen looked around his surroundings. All the people running stalls were Outer Sect disciple as well. He asked, "Brother Lu Chen, why are there so many people opening stores outside Evil Wind Valley? Why don't they spend their time cultivating instead of doing business?" Lu Chen smiled bitterly. "An outer disciple only gets 1 spirit stone and 1,000 silver taels of remuneration. This is not sufficient for cultivation. Furthermore, the competition is too intense. Everyone wants to enter the inner sect. There is simply not enough money to keep up with what we need." Xiao Chen thought to himself, this is probably the problem for most independent cultivators. Unless they have a stroke of good fortune or rob the noble clan disciples, they will have to set up stalls like these people here. Suddenly, Lu Chen said, "Brother Yi, if you want to find rank 5 spirit beasts, there are a few places on this map where you will definitely meet one." "Where?" Xiao Chen's interest was piqued. He still had to kill a rank 5 spirit beast. After all, he made so many preparations already. He could not let all the work go to nothing. Lu Chen pointed to a location on the map. The mark there indicated where rank 5 spirit herbs could be found. This is where the rank 5 herb luminous grass can be found. Further ahead, you can find the rank 6 herb ice crystal flower. There will definitely be rank 5 spirit beasts protecting the rank 6 herbs. They can be found here, and here too. Xiao Chen could not help but smile. This highest rank of herbs indicated on this map was only rank 5. It seemed like Lu Chen had been hiding some information. "I know I'm stepping out of my bounds here, but I am quite curious. Brother Yi, why are you asking about rank 5 spirit beasts?" Lu Chen could clearly sense that Xiao Chen was only a superior grande martial master. It would be impossible for him to survive an encounter with a rank 5 spirit beast. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. "No reason, just casually asking. How much is the map? I'll buy it." Seeing as Xiao Chen was unwilling to speak, Lu Chen did not continue to press the matter. "The map is very cheap, just 200 silver taels. 200 silver taels for a map and you call it cheap? He must be treating me like a fool." However, the amount was insignificant to Xiao Chen. Thus, he did not bother to bargain. After he robbed the Zhang clan's secret treasury, aside from the 20 million gold taels he spent on Flying Snow Manor, he still had 10 million gold taels and all sorts of spirit weapons and medicinal pills. Xiao Chen took out a 1,000 silver taels banknote and exchanged it for the map. When Lu Chen saw the spatial ring on Xiao Chen's finger, a flash of greed appeared in his eyes for a moment without him realizing it. Even so, it disappeared almost immediately. He maintained a smile on his face and gave Xiao Chen his change. He said warmly, "I hope Brother Yi Chen will have a good harvest. Maybe we can cooperation again in future." After Xiao Chen left, the flash of greed in his eyes returned as he watched Xiao Chen leave. He quickly packed up his stall and told the people who were checking out his wares with a smile, "My apologies, the stall is closed for the day." Amidst the strange looks from the crowd, Lu Chen quickly left and ran into a desolate forest outside Evil Wind Valley. Within the forest, there were a few youths wearing the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Outer Sect disciple uniforms. In front of them lay a corpse. "Boss, this fellow was such a pauper, he only had 2,000 taels of silver on him. Furthermore, they are all crushed silver. The medicinal pills he had are all rank 2 trash," one of them swore incessantly as he spoke. TL note. Silver and gold normally come in an ingot form. Taels is actually a unit of measurement. For easy measurement and counting, silver and gold are smelted into ingots weighing 1 tael. Normally, silver or gold of equivalent weight but not smelted into such ingots have a lower value. The person leading them was called Zhang Tu, an inferior grade martial grand master. There was an insidious expression on his face as he said sullenly, "There are just a few months to the end of the year. If I cannot raise my cultivation realm to medial grade martial grand master, there will be no chance of me entering the inner sect." These people were all outer disciples of Heavenly Saber Pavilion, they were all independent cultivators. For the sake of obtaining cultivation resources, they would frequently ambush solitary cultivators in Evil Wind Valley, occasionally even attacking people from the same sect. When Zhang Tu saw Lu Chen rushing over, he had an unhappy expression on his face. He said, "What are you doing here? Running for your life. Why are you running so fast?" Lu Chen felt anxious and quickly described everything he saw earlier to Zhang Tu. Zhang Tu revealed an expression of being deep in thought. He said, "Are you sure he was alone? If he has a spatial ring, he is likely to be a descendant of a noble clan. How can he be alone?" Lu Chen nodded his head, "I am absolutely sure. Furthermore, this person seems to be new, he does not seem to understand anything. He asked a lot of strange questions. He seems to be a peak superior grade martial master. When he paid, he just casually used a 1,000 silver taels banknote. This person is definitely not poor. Furthermore, he did not even bother to bargain on the price. It is definitely a habit nurtured since young. Boss, let's do it." One of the people beside said as his eyes lit up when he heard what Lu Chen reported. Indeed, a superior grade martial master. Boss, you would be able to handle him alone. It'll be even easier with the few of us. The weakest amongst us is a medial grade martial master, nothing will go wrong. That's right, it's not as if boss has never done this before. Who knows, this person might even have spirit stones on him. That is something you need, boss. Zhang Tu revealed an expression of uncertainty, his rationality was telling him something was wrong. A superior grade martial disciple asking around about a rank 5 spirit beast was definitely not simple. However, the greed in his heart was like a flood, gushing against his rationality and overwhelming it. When Zhang Tu heard the words, "spirit stones," his greed immediately overcame his rationality. He consoled himself, no matter the situation, he is just a superior grade martial master. After he made up his mind, he said, "Lu Chen, you should have left some medicinal powder on him, right?" Lu Chen chuckled, "Definitely, I already spread them on the map long ago. We will be able to find him at any time. Outside one's house, the human heart is treacherous, wealth should not be revealed." This was a very simple principle, especially in Tianwu continent. The battles between humans were more bloody than ones with beasts. One should pay special note when outside. It was not that Xiao Chen did not understand this principle. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen experienced too little and accidentally revealed himself. He thought it was not important. However, in this Evil Wind Valley, the hearts of humans were vicious. One must keep their guard up. Surrounding Evil Wind Valley was a tall mountain. To say it was a valley was not quite right as it is very large. Within the valley, there were forests, rivers, and strange stone formations. It was broad and boundless. There were many cultivators traveling in and out of Evil Wind Forest. After crossing a river, Xiao Chen entered a dense forest. The forest was very large, people quickly separated from each other. As he continued forward, the number of people he ran into became less and less. Pooh! Xiao Bai jumped out happily from the spirit blood jade. In the past few days, aside from the inside of the house, Xiao Chen had not let it out. The main reason was it was too eye-catching. It was completely snow white without any blemish, and it had eyes filled with spirituality. With one look, it was obvious it was not ordinary. Xiao Bai was especially excited in the forest. When it landed on the ground, it immediately ran far away. Xiao Chen just smiled and did not bother with it. With its speed, there were no spirit beasts who could catch it. However, Xiao Chen warned it to not run too far. He was not afraid of the fierce spirit beasts, but he was afraid Xiao Bai would be seen by the other cultivators and attract some unwanted trouble. Xiao Chen took out the map and inspected it carefully. He finally decided to go to where the ice crystal flowers were and check it out. He intended to check out all the places, one by one. It did not matter what Zhe Yunbin thought. After making so many preparations, he had to give it everything he had. If Zhe Yunbin still wanted to play any tricks, it would not be too late to fall out with him then. Within Evil Wind Valley, Zhang Tu traced and followed the route Xiao Chen took. He was following behind in a leisure manner. Occasionally, Lu Chen would stop and sniff the air. His martial spirit was an ordinary dog. It was useless in fights, but it was good for tracking people. This was not the first time they had done this. Everyone had relaxed expressions and did not pay note to what was going on. Boss, he is likely going to the ice crystal flowers, Lu Chen said after sniffing the air for a while. Zhang Tu frowned slightly, and his face turned sullen. He muttered to himself, could he be really looking for a rank 5 spirit beast? He is just a superior grade martial disciple, where does his confidence come from? Lu Chen, who was to the side, heard Zhang Tu's mutterings. He said, he might have some secret treasures. We might have hooked a big fish this time. When Zhang Tu heard this, he was deep in thought. After a while, he said gravely, that can be the only possible reason. This fellow is definitely not an ordinary superior grade martial master. We cannot follow your usual plan. Fourth brother, that thing of yours. How many more times can it be used? Zhang Tu turned around and asked a skinny cultivator. That skinny cultivator took out an ordinary-looking piece of metal and said with some astonishment, there should be no problem using it 2 or 3 more times. Will we need to use this thing? A ruthless look appeared in Zhang Tu's eyes as he took the piece of metal. He said, this fellow is definitely not ordinary. We won't go wrong listening to me. When we get near, we will hide ourselves first. We must obtain the first move and surprise him, there cannot be any trace of us. Although this map was very expensive, it accurately marked the locations of spirit beasts. Xiao Chen followed the markings and was able to avoid a few spirit beasts that tended to group together. Along the way, he only met with solitary spirit beasts and dealt with them easily. After dealing with a rank 3 spirit beast obstructing him, Xiao Chen dug out its spirit core and placed it into his universe ring. He followed the principle of not wasting anything. After Xiao Chen had done all this, he took out the map again and looked at it carefully. At this time, Xiao Bai came out from an unknown place and leapt onto Xiao Chen's shoulder. When it saw the map in Xiao Chen's hands, it walked over and sniffed it curiously. I see. Before it got near, it sneezed. A cloud of power rose up from the map. Xiao Chen frowned and stopped breathing. He quickly threw the map in his hand onto the ground. Then, he took out a piece of white paper and collected all the powder. The green core in his sea of consciousness extended out with his spiritual sense and carefully analyzed the powder on the paper. This green core was the spiritual core only alchemists possessed. Xiao Chen had not used it for a very long time. Now, it was time for it to be put to work. TL note. Wow, the spiritual core is finally back. Anyway, do bear in mind this is different from the spirit core spirit beast possessed. For more reference, you can read chapter 25 again. Withdrawing his spiritual sense, Xiao Chen discarded the white paper. He breathed out in relief, it was just a powder with a special smell. Fortunately, it was not poison. If it were, he would have fallen for it. Xiao Chen's lips curled up in a cold smile. He carefully inspected the map again and said indifferently, the heart of a human is always unfathomable. Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense, and everything within 800 meters appeared in his mind. Every flower, every tree, and even some cultivators who were fighting with spirit beasts. Nothing escaped Xiao Chen's notice. After a while, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense picked up 6 figures hiding around trees along the path he had to take to get to the ice crystal flowers. Lu Chen's figure was indeed amongst them. As the 6 people saw Xiao Chen approaching, they all became very cautious. They even stopped their breathing. It was instantly extremely quiet. Zhang Tu held that mysterious piece of metal in his hand. He was actually sweating. He could not help but scold himself in his heart. Just a superior grade martial master, there is no need to be so anxious. He slowly recovered his calm as he watched Xiao Chen get closer. He could not help but slowly count down in his heart, 10, 9, 8, go. When he finished his countdown, he immediately threw the piece of metal in his hand. The piece of metal immediately grew large, becoming the size of a small mountain instantly and falling towards Xiao Chen. There was a loud crash as it landed. The ground trembled, and some of the nearby trees fell. "Oh, no!" Zhang Tu exclaimed. In an instant the piece of metal left his hand, there was a flash of lightning, and Xiao Chen suddenly disappeared. Ah! There was a loud, miserable cry. It was horrifying to hear in the silent forest. Lu Chen's body was chopped into 2 pieces and fell from the tree. Xiao Chen stood on the tree watching the piece of metal on the ground. He felt astonished. It was fortunate Xiao Chen picked up on their intent to kill him. Otherwise, if he were caught off guard, Xiao Chen would have fallen for the trap. With such a huge thing pressing on them, even a martial saint would not be feeling good. Zhang Tu quickly descended to the ground and picked up the piece of metal. He wanted to throw it again, but Xiao Chen did not give him the opportunity to do so. Xiao Chen leapt into the air and rushed over from the top of the tree. He turned into a howling azure dragon. A cold gleam flashed. When Xiao Chen landed before Zhang Tu, he did not hesitate to make a quick move, drawing the saber. The saber created a gust of wind, but the saber was faster than the wind itself, startling Zhang Tu. He quickly gave up on throwing the piece of metal and retreated. When Xiao Chen saw him retreat, the corner of his lips curled up slightly in a smile. There was a loud crack of thunder from behind him as electricity surged through the ground and traveled through Xiao Chen's feet before gathering on the lunar shadow saber. In an instant, there was a flash of purple light. Xiao Chen did not even bother to release the power of the demonic core in the lunar shadow saber. However, the electric light was still very dazzling. He stepped forward ferociously, and the blade of his saber fired out a long purple arc light. On the arc light were countless electric sparks flickering. It looked very strange but beautiful. Zhang Tu knew he would not be able to dodge this arc light. He used all the essence in his body to form a shield of essence, hoping to clash head-on with it. However, the rushing thunder saber technique that was improved by Xiao Chen was much mightier than it was before. Despite Zhang Tu using all his essence to create the shield, it was not sufficient. Pu Si. The shield of essence in front of Zhang Tu was immediately sliced apart. The purple light cut through his clothes and created a long gash in the yellow-grade battle armor he was wearing. Then, it left a huge gaping wound on his chest, resulting in blood spurting out. The horrifying electric light penetrated his body quickly, destroying the meridians in his body. Immediately, all the essence in Zhang Tu's body became chaotic. He temporarily lost control of his body. Rushing heaven chop. Xiao Chen shouted as his body soared. The saber pierced towards Zhang Tu's chest in a manner that was void of any gaudiness. No. Zhang Tu's eyes revealed an expression of extreme horror and despair. At that instant, his life started to flash before him. He thought of the eagerness and excitement he once had when he first came to Saber City. He thought of the oath he swore when he entered Heavenly Saber Pavilion's outer sect. He would become the strongest saber user one day. However, all his ideas shattered in the face of the cruel reality. There were many who had similar talent as him, cultivating to levels ahead of him by relying on the resources of their clans. After a year or two, his hopes of entering the inner sect became distant and indistinct. It was not known from when, but he had forgotten his oath and fell to his current depraved state. Suddenly, he realized, in a dispirited manner, he was going to die soon. This was his final battle, and he actually did not even manage to draw his saber. He only thought of using despicable means to deal with a superior grade martial disciple. He did his best to regain control of his right hand, wanting to pull out the saber at his waist. However, the moment he touched the handle, the lunar shadow saber pierced through his body, along with Xiao Chen. There was a loud bang, and his body exploded into bits. Zhang Tu's saber fell to the ground. He did not manage to draw it before dying. Xiao Chen spun around and quickly caught the falling piece of metal with his hand. The remaining 4 people behind him turned pale when they saw Xiao Chen deal with the strongest amongst them, Zhang Tu. In an instant, they immediately fled. Dragon seizing hand. Xiao Chen shouted, and a huge, black palm descended from the sky. It smashed the 4 people to the ground with a loud bang. Xiao Chen used the dragon seizing hand again without moving from his original spot. This time, he used his right hand to control the huge, black palm, forming a fist. Boom. A cultivator who was struggling to stand up was immediately hammered violently by the black fist. He cried out miserably before he was crushed to a pulp. Boom. 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 There were 3 more explosion sounds. The black fist continuously smashed down with a surging force and huge power. The ground trembled continuously, the trees to the side became slanted. After a long time, the trembling stopped. Xiao Chen stood upright with his hands behind his back. He eyed the 5 corpses coldly before searching through them and quickly leaving the area. There was too much attention drawn just now. There were many cultivators attracted by it, and they had started making their way there. Xiao Chen did not dare linger too long. Not long after Xiao Chen left, a heavenly saber pavilion outer disciple arrived. He was carrying a thick saber, and there was a long horizontal scar on his face. That scar made the originally young and tender face look very malevolent. When he saw the bodies on the ground, he was not too shocked. Zhang Hu's body had been exploded to bits already. It looked very disgusting, blood dyed the ground red. It was impossible to make out the identity of the corpse. After looking around for a while, he found a black metal token. On the front of the token was Zhang Tu's name. On the back, the words, Heavenly Saber Pavilion Outer Sect, were carved. Zhang Tu was killed by someone in Evil Wind Valley. The scarred man said slowly, his eyes revealed shock. In the depth of his eyes, there was a hard-to-trace grief. Pooh. 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 There was the sound of rushing footsteps. Many Heavenly Saber Pavilion outer disciples had heard the commotion and rushed over. When they saw the miserable way in which the bodies on the ground were killed, they were all startled. It's Lu Chen and his group, this is their metal token. Very soon, they found their identity tokens. As they were all outer sect disciples, everyone naturally recognized Lu Chen's group. They all felt afraid at seeing how the group died so miserably. One of the outer disciples wearing embroidered robes came over to the scarred man and took a look at the metal token in his hand. He was stunned. After that, he smiled. I never expected Zhang Tu to die as well. I thought he managed to escape. Lu Mingfei, were you the one who killed them? Zhang Tu was your biggest competitor for entering the inner sect. He looked at the scarred man and asked mockingly, as though he was completely looking down on him. Zhang Tu actually died. He was one of the top 10 contenders for the inner sect spot. His death is unfortunate. I do not know who did it, to actually kill 6 Heavenly Saber Pavilion outer disciples under Heavenly Saber Pavilion's noses. How daring. He is clearly looking down on Heavenly Saber Pavilion. It is clear this person has a much higher cultivation than Zhang Tu. This fellow must have tried to kick a rock. After bullying so many people, he was finally bullied back. When the group of disciples who rushed over heard Zhang Tu's name, they all broke out in discussions. Some shook their head and sighed, and some were secretly happy. This way, there would be one less competitor for the end-of-year exam. The treatment of a Heavenly Saber Pavilion inner disciple was much better than an outer disciple. Just considering the spirit stones alone, they received 10 times the amount an outer disciple would. Furthermore, they would have the opportunity to be taught by a martial king. They would also have all sorts of high-ranked martial techniques and medicinal pills to choose from. The mountain range was filled with spiritual energy, the amount could not compare to Saber cities. However, there were only 10 spots for outer disciples to enter the inner sect every year. This resulted in the competition amongst the outer sect being very intense. As for most of the cultivators here, they were happy when they heard the news of Jiangtu dying. Looming Fei stood up and grasped the metal token tightly. He faced the youth in embroidered robes and said coldly, "Yan Tianzheng, you best hope you will not be matched against me in the competition at the end of year. Otherwise, I will kill you." After he spoke, he immediately left, taking big strides. Yan Tianzheng laughed mockingly as he watched him leave. "He's just a commoner. To think he wants to compete against me for an intersect spot. Fat chance." In another portion of the forest, Xiao Chen casually laid a small illusion formation. Then he carefully inspected the piece of metal in his hand. This piece of metal could actually grow on command, becoming the size of a small mountain instantly. It was quite similar to the legend in his previous life where Yu the Great tossed out a handful of mud. It instantly grew big and stopped a flood. "Is this a kind of secret treasure?" Xiao Chen asked as he looked at the piece of metal with doubt. However, when he checked it with his spiritual sense, Xiao Chen was unable to find any dows or formations in it. There was no evidence of it being a secret weapon. Just as Xiao Chen was lost in thought, he suddenly remembered an extremely precious material listed in the Compendium of Cultivation. Astral Iron. This was a naturally formed treasure. According to legend, it originated from a piece of meteorite. After it was forged, it would have all sorts of miraculous effects. Some would be able to summon endless flame, cold ice, harsh winds, some could create a small realm, and some could even summon a creature, not from this world. It was very strange. The astral iron had existed in the universe for hundreds of thousands of years. Over such a long span of time, they absorbed all the chaotic spiritual energy of the universe and all sorts of strange radiation. It was not surprising it could have such strange effects. "This is definitely a piece of astral iron," Xiao Chen said joyfully. He was sure because it was listed in the Compendium of Cultivation. Although it only gave a brief introduction, it was something that really existed. Although the effects of the Compendium of Cultivation were not all the same, they had one common usage, to repair all sorts of divine weapons and secret treasure. It could even completely repair the strongest divine weapon or emperor-grade secret treasure. Xiao Chen took out the small, exquisite copper bell and looked at the damaged carvings on it. He smiled faintly and said, "With this, it should be able to recover. As for the chaotic formation markings, I can sort them out slowly in future." He placed the copper bell on his palm and wrapped his spiritual sense around the astral iron. The astral iron slowly floated up, and the boundless purple flame in his right eye started to rotate rapidly. Su. The purple flame leapt out from his right eye and started burning the astral iron. The astral iron was very resistant to heat. An ordinary flame would not be able to melt it. At the moment, Xiao Chen formed the purple thunder true fire origin. He needed to raise the temperature to the extreme before he could even barely melt it. Time slowly went by. 4 hours passed without Xiao Chen realizing it. The astral iron within the purple flame showed no signs of change. Sweat filled Xiao Chen's forehead. It dripped down his face unceasingly. The horrifying flame was giving his face a red glow. Bang! Xiao Chen threw away another spirit stone that lost its glow. This was already the third spirit stone he threw away. By using the purple thunder true fire for so long, he exhausted an extreme amount of essence. Actually, with Xiao Chen's current cultivation realm, he was too hasty in trying to melt the astral iron. Even the ancient cultivators on Earth were only able to melt the astral iron after they cultivated to the Yuanying stage. It was, after all, an extraterrestrial object, not a regular natural treasure. It was not so easy to melt. Xiao Chen gently wiped the sweat from his forehead. However, he was not too worried. He looked resolutely at the astral iron being heated unceasingly by the purple flames. After Xiao Chen tossed away his 10th spirit stone, there were finally some changes to the astral iron. A scarlet liquid slowly dripped down and fell into the jade bottle Xiao Chen had prepared earlier. Just at this moment, something strange happened. A faintly discernible vicious spirit rushed out of the astral iron at Xiao Chen and gave off a horrifyingly anguished wail. This was the mysterious vicious spirit of the universe. Almost every piece of astral iron would have one. The vicious spirit did not have a physical form, it was only a spirit that ate human souls. Martial techniques did not affect it. No one knew how a vicious spirit was formed. Just like the strange effects of the astral iron, it was impossible to use common logic to understand it. Xiao Chen was startled but did not panic. He expected the appearance of the vicious spirit. As the vicious spirit opened its jaws and headed for Xiao Chen's head, two beams of purple light suddenly shot out of Xiao Chen's eyes. The purple light pierced through the vicious spirit. The instant it pierced through, it emitted a black smoke. The vicious spirit screamed incessantly before finally fading to nothing. This was the purple beam Xiao Chen would fire every time he advanced in cultivation realm. Xiao Chen never knew what uses it had. However, Xiao Chen's intuition told him it would be able to destroy the soul-sucking spirit. It seemed as though he had seen something similar happen before. While he was planning to melt the astral iron, Xiao Chen made up his mind to take advantage of this change to make a breakthrough and step into the martial Grand Master realm while relying on the purple light to kill the vicious spirit. Although now was not the best time to advance in cultivation realm, for the sake of vanquishing the extraterrestrial vicious spirit, he did not have much choice. The instant the vicious spirit was vanquished, the astral iron also completely melted. Xiao Chen got up and stretched himself. He was not in a rush to check his cultivation after advancing in realm. He immediately picked up the bottle and took a look. The astral iron, which was able to enlarge to the size of a small mountain, was actually only left with 10 odd drops of scarlet liquid after it had been melted. Drip. Xiao Chen slowly poured the liquid onto the copper bell. The instant the red liquid dripped on the copper bell, it permeated it. It seemed very strange. After all the scarlet liquid was infused, the ancient copper bell gave off a scarlet glow. With a shua sound, it immediately flew into the air. Markings appeared on the surface of the copper bell, as though an invisible hand was carving on it. The holes and broken bits of the copper bell slowly repaired themselves. The copper bell emitted a faint righteous qi. When standing beside it, one would feel a sense of peace. Xiao Chen revealed an expression of joy. As he stared at the copper bell in the air, he said, "It is indeed a secret treasure used by the ancient sages. It was worth me wasting 10 spirit stones for this." Dang. When the final formation marking on the copper bell was finished, a complete ancient bell appeared in front of Xiao Chen's eye. With a shua sound, the bell enlarged to the size of human and a drawn-out ringing rang out. This sound was very peaceful. Xiao Chen stood directly below the bell. He felt his newly obtained cultivation as an inferior grade martial Grand Master stabilized significantly as a result of the melodious ringing. Xiao Chen raised his head and took a look. The inside of the copper bell was pitch black. It was boundlessly deep. He could not help but think, it seems like there is a small realm in there. A secret treasure which could create a small realm. Could it be a damaged king-grade secret treasure? Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He looked at the deep space and doubt filled his head. A black banner flew out of Xiao Chen's eye. The banner carried Xiao Chen's spiritual sense and entered into the black space. Boom. The world Xiao Chen saw suddenly changed. An empty space appeared in front of his eyes. The black flag under his feet headed downwards continuously. Bang. After descending for an unknown period, the black banner was stuck down on a patch of ground, which appeared in the empty space. A small realm started to expand outwards, starting from where the banner was. The wind blew strongly, and dust filled the air. There were thunderous roars. The scene created by the small realm was one of an ancient battlefield. Above the empty space, countless humanoid creatures stood still in a packed manner. These creatures had 3 heads and 6 arms. They held all sorts of weapons in their arms, and black qi covered their bodies. There were some who had bird-like wings. They were floating in the sky, continuously making hand seals. Streams of apocalyptic energy descended from the sky. In an even more distant place, there were 7 figures more than 300 meters tall. It seemed that their heads reached the top of the sky. Boundless black clouds gathered around their heads, spanning tens of thousands of kilometers. The space reached as far as the eye could see. There were layers upon layers, looking vast and mighty. Amongst all these, a human laughed loudly. His laughter contained a heroic spirit. It caused one's blood to boil. A huge copper bell floated above his head. The sound of the bell sounded divine, spreading out everything. Visible ripples appeared in the air, clearing out a patch of sky. It was like breaking dead branches off a tree. The countless humanoids in the sky instantly turned to ash. He pushed off the ground with his feet, and the ground trembled, and the skies shook, mountains broke, and rivers surged. He stretched out his hand to make a grab. His fingers became immensely huge. He easily crushed all the humanoids to death like ants. Xiao Chen stood there without moving. He was thinking very hard as he said in shock, "This is the dragon seizing hand. Is this person an ancestor of the Yan clan? What a terrifying strength." He managed to break apart the laws of this space with just a palm. Xiao Chen was like a spectator standing in the midst of this battlefield. When the demonic army surrounded in black chi walked past, it seemed like they noticed Xiao Chen. They simply headed directly for the Yan clan ancestor. However, the Yan clan ancestor was an unrivaled existence. The copper bell above his head fired a stream of dark yellow chi and blocked all the incoming attack. No one could get near. Finally, far in the distance, a cold voice came from amongst the 7 huge figures, the human race's strongest defensive secret treasure, Eastern Emperor Bell. As the voice rang out, the 7 huge figures rushed out. They took great strides and arrived at the Yan clan ancestor in no time. The surrounding people immediately backed off. There was a loud sound, and a huge hole appeared in the space. The Eastern Emperor Bell was ringing non-stop. The Yan clan ancestor was fighting 1 against 7, but he was not disadvantaged at all. However, as the fight went on, cracks started to appear on the Eastern Emperor Bell. At the final moment, it could no longer hold on, and its formation markings all broke completely. With a loud boom, it turned into a small, exquisite bell and fell to the ground, landing by Xiao Chen's feet. The Yan clan ancestor vomited blood as he laughed loudly and his body suddenly exploded. He had detonated himself. In the instant of his explosion, the ancient battlefield vanished without a trace. The boundless land was only left with the small, exquisite copper bell, proving everything that happened was real. Xiao Chen picked up the copper bell and wiped the dust off it. He sent a strand of spiritual sense into it and discovered there was no trace of a mark left by the Yan clan ancestor. This was much easier to deal with. Xiao Chen left his spiritual sense in it, turning it into a mark as it slowly merged with the Eastern Emperor Bell. Then, he controlled the black banner to break the space apart and left. When the black banner entered Xiao Chen's eyes, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense returned to his body. When he looked at the Eastern Emperor Bell in the sky again, Xiao Chen had a mysterious connection with it. Waving his hands, the huge copper bell shrunk to the size of a finger and landed on Xiao Chen's palm. He muttered, "Eastern Emperor Bell. The human race's strongest defensive secret weapon. I wonder what % of its might would be wieldable now." Xiao Chen put the copper bell away into the universe ring and left the illusion formation. If there were someone around, they would discover, to their surprise, Xiao Chen's body appearing from thin air. Huh. There was an indistinct sigh that reached Xiao Chen's ears. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave, and he extended his spiritual sense. Since he left the city lord residence, he felt as if there was someone following him. However, it was just a very vague feeling. Now that he was a martial grand master, his perception had been significantly improved. This feeling was now further intensified. He carefully scanned the area with his spiritual sense a few times, but he was not able to discover anyone. Xiao Chen said in doubt, "Could I be overreacting? If there were really someone, he would have been discovered by my spiritual sense long ago." Shaking his head, Xiao Chen stopped thinking about it. He simply kept an eye out and continued heading forward. Just at this moment, Xiao Bai ran over from a distant place. There were several stalks of herbs in its mouth. It leapt in front of Xiao Chen, showing off the treasures it found. Xiao Chen received them and took a look. He could not help but smile. They were rank 5 luminous grass. Xiao Chen initially did not have any intention of picking them. Who knew Xiao Bai would actually go and obtain them for him? Since he had already obtained the luminous grass, the ice crystal flower should be right in front. Xiao Chen carried Xiao Bai into his embrace. As he was about to approach the place where the ice crystal flower grew, he could not let it run about anymore. After a while, Xiao Chen walked out of the forest. He took out the map and looked at it. According to the markings on the map, the ice crystal flower should be growing on the side of the mountain in front. Because it was protected by the rank 5 spirit beast, Ice Ape, a regular outer disciple would not come to pick this rank 6 spirit herb despite knowing about it. The instant Xiao Chen walked out of the forest, the sun shined on him again. Looking into the distance, he was able to see a tall cliffside. This was the boundary of Evil Wind Valley. Xiao Chen patted Xiao Bai's head and placed it into the spirit blood jade despite its unwilling gaze. Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense to the front and did not see any trace of the rank 5 Ice Ape. However, he saw some young Ice Apes resting in a clearing. Their strength were only about rank 4. Seems like I made this trip for nothing. There are no rank 5 spirit beasts around here. Xiao Chen sighed as he prepared to leave. However, he thought he might as well check on the ice crystal flower before leaving since he was here. After all, it was a rank 6 herb. Even if he did not use it, he could sell it for a good price. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen quickly headed for the cliffside. Right as he was about to arrive, there was a startling cry. Xiao Chen stopped and looked in the direction of the cry. Below the cliffside, a stout young man was defending himself against 3 ice apes with a huge axe. On the cliffside behind him, there was a petite figure with a basket on her back nimbly climbing up the cliffside. Above her head in a crack on the cliffside, a flower petal flickering with cold light peeked out, as though it was made of ice. Xiao Chen's heart was filled with suspicions. He had scanned through this place with his spiritual sense earlier but had not discovered any traces of cultivators. Where did these 2 people appear from? Starting at these 2 people, Xiao Chen was shocked to discover that they had not condensed their martial spirit yet. They were only in the spirit refinement realm and were stronger than ordinary people by a little. No wonder he had not discovered them earlier. These 2 people could not be considered cultivators just yet. There were no fluctuations of essence coming from them, which was what made him miss out on picking them up. Isn't 2 ordinary people coming to Evil Wind Valley the same as seeking death? Xiao Chen said in a slight tone of rebuke. These people were treating their lives too lightly. The girl on the cliffside was a smidgen below the ice crystal flower, just a little more and she could pick the ice crystal flower. Who? However, just at this moment, a young ice ape broke through the defenses of the stout youth below. Immediately, it leapt onto the cliffside, arriving behind the girl with a few leaps. No! Shouted the stout youth standing guard below. His eyes were bloodshot as he threw the huge axe at the ice ape. The ice ape dodged nimbly, avoiding the huge axe. It stretched its arm out and reached out for the girl. When the girl turned her head back to look, she turned pale with fright. Losing her stable footing, she fell. Because he was now lacking a weapon, the stout youth on the ground was smashed to the ground by 2 ice apes. He was instantly covered in bloody wounds. It was a cruel sight to behold. Lightning evasion. There was a flash of lightning and Xiao Chen instantly arrived before the youth. A 66cm saber light blew on the lunar shadow saber. This was the first time Xiao Chen had truly condensed saber light, something only martial grand masters could do. Pu Si. The saber light mercilessly chopped towards the ice ape that was beating up the stout youth, severing its arm. However, hard ice immediately covered its body, stopping the saber blade from going any further. Xiao Chen was mildly surprised that he was not able to slice its body apart. The ice ape who had its arm chopped off howled in grief painfully. Together with the other ice ape, it gave up on attacking the youth laying on the ground. A cold chi appeared on both apes' palms. Their eyes turned fierce, and they hammered down at Xiao Chen with their freezing palms. Xiao Chen stepped back slightly while a bolt of lightning descended from the sky, gathering on the saber blade. The lunar shadow saber created a purple arclight with electricity flicking on it. In an instant, Xiao Chen slashed horizontally at the chests of the 2 ice apes. The electrical light immediately blasted the 2 ice apes back. Xiao Chen did not continue his offense. He looked at the girl falling in the air and manifested a silver warship from his eyes that caught her. The ice ape on the cliffside roared and rushed at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen slid the lunar shadow saber into its scabbard. Dragon seizing hand. A huge black hand appeared from nowhere, carrying an unparalleled strength. It smashed the ice ape into the cliffside with a bang. Palm to fist. The huge black hand curled up tightly, seemingly filled with power as he pounded on the ice ape at the cliffside violently. Loud noises boomed non-stop, and the cliffside kept trembling as pieces of stone fell down from its wall. Having pounded the ice ape into it violently, a huge hole appeared in the cliffside. Blood trickled out from the corner of its lips. Surprisingly, its body had yet to turn into mush and it looked the same as it did earlier. How resilient. Xiao Chen snarled with a frown. He pulled out the lunar shadow saber and stuck it onto the ground before taking out the soul slayer bow and the essence light arrow. There was a whiz as its aura surged forward, like a meteor piercing through the sky, when he shot it out. The lightning-fast arrow headed for the ice ape climbing out of the hole with a boom. The essence light arrow pierced through the ice ape's neck and pinned it to the cliffside. The ice ape was at this point as dead as it could possibly be. With their keen level of intelligence, when the other two ice apes saw what happened to their companion, they quickly turned around and fled. Xiao Chen looked at them indifferently before knocking two essence light arrows on the bow. The arrows moved very fast, piercing through the air, arriving instantly. They pierced through the hearts of the ice apes, leaving behind a large hole in each one's torso. With a loud thud, they fell to the ground. "Thank you, benefactor, for saving my life." The stout youth covered in wounds crawled over and gave thanks. Xiao Chen stood at his side, but despite being 1.8 meters tall, he was actually shorter than him by a head. Xiao Chen looked at his face, noting that he appeared extremely pure and honest. His age was likely to be no older than Xiao Chen's. However, Xiao Chen had many questions about what they were doing in Evil Wind Valley. They had not even condensed their martial spirit, so what were they doing here? Xiao Chen waved his hand and a silver boat flew over and landed slowly. The girl on the boat quickly jumped off. Seeing the youth covered in wounds, Xiao Chen took out 2 blood-replenishing pills and handed them to him. He said, "Apply one on the outside and eat the other. They will treat the wounds on your body." Although his wounds were not fatal, if they were not dealt with it would definitely result in a very long recovery time. The youth shook his head and declined. "There is no need, this medicinal pill should be very expensive. This injury is not a problem." However, the girl behind him received it. She said in a meek and graceful manner, "Benefactor, don't listen to Xiao Yang's nonsense. If such serious injuries are not treated, it would take a long time for him to recover." Xiao Chen smiled faintly, returning the silver boat into his eye. He did not say anything and took his leave. He had only passed by and happened to save them, so there was no need to linger too long. The youth called Xiao Yang wanted to chase after Xiao Chen, but he was stopped by the girl behind him. "Don't chase after him. When Su Feng returns, it'll be problematic if he cannot find us." The youth helplessly watched as Xiao Chen left. The girl crushed a blood-replenishing pill and slowly applied it on the stout youth's wounds. Not long after Xiao Chen left, a blue-clothed youth arrived before them. Seeing Xiao Yang's wound, he quickly asked what had happened. After he understood the situation, he quickly chased in Xiao Chen's direction. Xiao Chen could sense a person rapidly approaching him, his aura very intense and belonging to at least a superior-grade martial Grand Master. Xiao Chen prepared himself as he stopped and turned around. When the blue-clothed youth saw that Xiao Chen had stopped, he rushed over and said, "I am Lu Sufeng. Could you please tell me your name? You have saved my 2 friends, so I will repay this debt of gratitude to you in the future." This youth looked impressive, filled with a righteous look on his face. His sincere words had dispelled Xiao Chen's misgivings. Xiao Chen replied indifferently, "Ni Chen, just lending a hand as I passed by. There is no need to view this matter so seriously." As Xiao Chen was sizing up Lu Sufeng was doing the same to him. After a while, Lu Sufeng was astonished. The one in front of him was only an inferior-grade martial Grand Master, yet he was able to chase away 3 young ice apes easily. This person was definitely not simple. "Is Brother Yi from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Outer Sect? I have never heard of your name before," Lu Sufeng asked. Xiao Chen looked at Lu Sufeng's waist area, saw a silver token, and understood the situation. This person was a Heavenly Saber Pavilion Inner Sect disciple. No wonder he wanted to know if he was from the Outer Sect. "No, I just arrived at Saber City not long ago," Xiao Chen answered truthfully, as he felt there was no need to hide this. The 2 of them chatted for a bit. Xiao Chen finally understood what those 2 ordinary people were doing in Evil Wind Valley. The ice crystal flower was something that blossomed every 3 months. Each time, the three of them would come to pick the petals of the ice crystal flower. Usually Lu Sufeng would lure the mature ice ape away and leave the two of them behind to pick the petals. Previously, there were only 2 young ice apes, which meant that Xiao Yang was able to hold them back until Lu Sufeng returned. However, for reasons unknown, there were 3 this time. Xiao Chen received an important piece of news from this. There really was a rank 5 spirit beast here. Furthermore, Lu Sufeng did not injure it, only luring it away. He could not help but feel happy. When they were departing, Lu Sufeng wanted to give Xiao Chen 3 inferior grade spirit stones. He originally thought Xiao Chen would gladly accept them, but he was unexpectedly turned down. In Xiao Chen's eyes, this was just a small matter. He truly was not able to accept such a large reward. Furthermore, he wanted to befriend this person. If he entered the inner sect, future interaction with this person was a possibility. Seeing Xiao Chen was not willing to accept, Lu Sufeng did not press on. He took his leave and departed, but not without promising Xiao Chen a favor to the best of his ability should he need it one day. Now that he had news of the rank 5 spirit beast, Xiao Chen was not in a rush to leave. He waited for the 3 of them to pick the petals of the ice crystal flower before revealing himself. Seeing the ice ape pinned to the wall, Xiao Chen thought for a while. Then he dug out the spirit cores in the 2 ice apes on the ground before burning their bodies to ash. After doing all this, Xiao Chen leapt up to the hole in the cliffside. He lifted the corpse of the young ice ape and placed 10 odd lightning attribute talismans on its back. Then, he leapt down and hid in some bushes, withdrawing his aura completely. After a long time, there was the sound of heavy footsteps coming from the distance. The cold chi in the air became incredibly horrifying. It's coming. Xiao Chen was slightly anxious, he did not even dare breathe too loudly. He raised his aura to the extreme. A 10-meter tall ice ape appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. It was covered in white fur and walked upright like a human. When seen from a distance, one might mistake it for an old man with white hair. Ow! Soon, the mature ice ape arrived at the cliffside and saw the young ice ape who died miserably. It howled angrily as its eyes became bloodshot. It stomped on the ground furiously and arrived at the hole in the cliffside in an instant. What a fast speed! Xiao Chen was astonished. The speed of this mature ice ape far exceeded his expectations. He was actually only able to see a blurry beam of white light. Xiao Chen could not wait anymore. He jumped out of the bush and made a hand seal, shouting, "Explode!" In the instant Xiao Chen came out, the ice ape immediately spun its head. Its heart was filled with rage as a baleful aura filled the air. However, just as it wanted to make a move, a boundless resplendent light lit up the cave. There was a heaven-shaking explosion. 10 odd rank 3 lightning attributed talismans exploded together. Its might already exceed that of a peak Earth ranked martial technique. Furthermore, its destructive power was even more horrifying. The corpse of the young ice ape was immediately blasted to bits. An intense shockwave instantly tossed the ice ape high into the air. The towering cliffside collapsed with a loud sound, the ground trembled non-stop. Countless rocks shot out and fell from the sky. Xiao Chen quickly retreated, avoiding these huge rocks containing a large amount of force. Shua! A white figure fell from the sky and landed beside Xiao Chen. Its palms were stretched out, and a boundless cold chi extended out. There was a dense cold chi on its 5 sharp claws as they smashed towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was startled when he looked at the white figure. He saw only a few layers of hard ice had been peeled off. 10 odd rank 3 talismans did not do that much damage to it. Huang Dang. He drew the lunar shadow saber out of its scabbard. Its rank 6 demonic core was completely unleashed. Boundless electric lights flickered. Xiao Chen brandished the saber and swung it around. He was covered in a crackling electric light, blocking the ice ape's sharp claws filled with cold chi. Dang dang. The ice ape had long large arms and legs, it could use them interchangeably. It moved around rapidly, its speed reaching an extreme. It transformed into a blurred white figure, attacking Xiao Chen continuously. The more Xiao Chen blocked, the more difficult it became. Soon, he felt something was wrong. The surrounding cold chi turned very thick. Every step he took felt incredibly difficult, his legs seemed to have gone stiff. Fu Si. The ice ape cried out strangely. The surrounding temperature decreased significantly. Xiao Chen was caught off guard, and his legs were frozen. The ice ape took advantage of this opportunity and grabbed the lunar shadow saber, ignoring the flickering electricity on it. Then it sent the other claws towards Xiao Chen's head. The ice ape's palm was about the size of a head. Xiao Chen's head was like an infant to it, it would be crushed with one light squeeze. Fu Si. Just as the palm with sharp claws was about to grab Xiao Chen's head, the boundless flame in Xiao Chen's right eye converged into a stream of flame and shot out. The flames immediately traveled along the ice ape's arm and spread throughout its whole body. It was instantly covered in fire. The ice ape cried out painfully, the cold qi surrounding it immediately scattered. A hot qi flowed around Xiao Chen's body, and he recovered back to a normal state. He freed himself and retreated urgently. Dragon seizing hand. A huge black hand appeared from nowhere and grabbed the burning ice ape. In the instant the black hand was clenched in a fist, Xiao Chen was met with an extremely strong resistance, resulting in the huge black hand being unable to grab hold of the ice ape. Xiao Chen immediately let go. He knew the ice ape's body was incredibly resilient. There was no need for him to go head-on with it. The huge black hand formed a fist and punched down. There were loud sounds as the ground trembled unceasingly. The ice ape was pounded into the ground. Xiao Chen withdrew and stood upright. He wiped off the sweat on his forehead. The exhaustion of essence of this inherited martial technique was much more than regular martial techniques. Although he had unexpectedly injured the ice ape, Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. He took out the Soul Slayer bow and knocked an essence light arrow. He drew the bow and pushed his concentration to its peak. There was a ka sound coming from the ground. It was obvious that was the sound of pieces of ice falling to the ground. Xiao Chen was astonished. Could it be the purple thunder? True fire was unable to break the layer of ice on the ice ape. There was a flash of white light. The ice ape stood up once again. It felt the aura of the Soul Slayer bow. The instant it got up, it immediately spun around and moved in an S-shaped line, creating a hurricane. Shoo! Xiao Chen released the arrow. He had already made a mark on the ice ape's chest using his spiritual sense earlier. Regardless how fast the ice ape fled, it would not be able to avoid the shot. It flashed by gracefully. The essence light arrow turned into a meteor, piercing through the hurricane created by the ice ape and striking its chest. Ka-ca. A piece of hard ice appeared on the ice ape's chest, blocking the arrow. The essence light arrow shattered the hard ice but was unable to proceed further. It fell to the ground together with the shattered ice. The arrow carried a huge force and caused the ice ape to stagger backward by 5 steps. Xiao Chen saw the hard ice on the ground, and he thought furiously in his heart, I don't believe you can keep creating hard ice limitlessly. Xiao Chen was determined. He fired multiple essence light arrows without holding back. Instantly, the countless buzzing of arrows filled the air. No matter what the ice ape did, be it jumping high in the air or dodging left and right, an arrow would be able to knock it back like a sudden clap of thunder. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen fired out more than 100 essence light arrows. Even though Xiao Chen was only relying on his powerful physical body to draw the Soul Slayer bow, Xiao Chen felt exhausted. However, the ice ape looked like nothing had happened to it. Countless amounts of shattered ice and essence light arrows covered the ground. The ice ape dashed at Xiao Chen in high spirits. Flight on wings, one-line chop. After Xiao Chen finished using the essence light arrow, he put away the Soul Slayer bow. He shouted lightly, and the saber seemed ordinary as it chopped towards the ice ape. Bang! Both human and beast took multiple steps back. Xiao Chen was mildly astonished in his heart, and then he felt some joy. The strength contained in the ice ape's palm was not as ferocious as it was earlier. Flight on wings, disordered dance of 1,000 years. Xiao Chen stepped forward and leapt into the air. His body continuously changed postures in midair. In an instant, his speed was raised to an extreme. Countless saber lights appeared. The wind howled as the ice ape continuously struck out with its palms. There were 1 man and 1 beast, one in the air, one on the ground. They were rapidly moving around. The sound of metal clanging against metal rang out continuously. Every time the palm and saber met, there was a large shockwave. The shockwave created a huge stream of air, causing the dust to fly into the air. By the time Xiao Chen landed, he had sent out more than 1,000 saber strikes. The hard ice on the ice ape's body shattered and fell continuously. When the ice had all fallen to the ground, there were bloody wounds on the chest, arms and back of the ice ape. The wounds were not deep, but they had injured his body. Red blood dyed its snow-white fur. Xiao Chen felt consoled. As long as he raised his speed to the peak, there would be somewhere he would be able to strike. After exchanging blows for so long, the ice that appeared on the ice ape was like a cheat. It could block any attacks sent at it. Xiao Chen got more pumped when he saw the ice ape was injured. Flight on wings, moonbright like fire. Xiao Chen did not give the ice ape the opportunity to take a breather. He quickly used an inferior grade spirit stone and replenished his essence. Then, Xiao Chen did not hesitate to use the strongest move he knew from flight on wings. The sky immediately turned pitch dark, and a full moon started to rise slowly. A human figure holding a saber flew over from the sky. Under the full moon, he moved gracefully and elegantly, as though he was an immortal from heaven. Although he still was not able to understand the intent of this sword, Xiao Chen had been using the changing character formula to replicate the dragon seizing hand continuously. He had already comprehended some things through his experience. Now, he finally was able to execute moonbright like fire completely. Come! Xiao Chen shouted, and the figure in the sky shouted as well. The celestial voice echoed through the sky, reverberating everywhere. The saber in his hand faced the ice ape attacking him from the air. He wriggled his finger, and the figure in the sky instantly made the same action. It was as though a boundless power broke through time and space, arriving here. The ice ape stopped in midair and was blasted back by a mysterious power. It rolled on the ground continuously. It stuck its claws into the ground, but it was still unable to stop. Its sharp claws dragged along the ground, creating several long fissures. After a long time, it stopped. Before it got up, a horrifying pressure descended from the sky. This aura felt like that of an immortal descending to the mortal world. Mortals were like ants to it as they trembled before it. The might of an immortal could not be measured, it could not be blocked. The sword strike of an immortal could break all the mountains and rivers within 5,000 kilometers. There were a loud sound and the figure in the sky chopped at the body of the ice ape. The ice ape used its claws to block, releasing a boundless cold chi and hoping to block the saber. However, it was slammed into the ground with a loud boom. It was unknown how deep it sank. There was an ape-shaped hole in the ground. The night sky slowly vanished, and the sun appeared in Evil Wind Valley again. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and slowly walked over to the hole. He had a headache. If the ice ape died already, how is he going to get its corpse out? Kai! Kai! Suddenly a layer of cold chi appeared on the ground. It instantly froze the ground, turning into slippery ice. Seeing the ice extend out from below his feet, Xiao Chen frowned. He quickly retreated backward, thinking to himself in shock, is the ice ape not dead yet? Bang! 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 Countless cracks appeared on the icy surface before exploding apart. The frozen dirt scattered everywhere. When it landed, it shattered like ice. There was now a deep pit on the flat ground. The mature ice ape in the pit stood below. Blood filled its originally snow-white fur. It looked miserable. It roared angrily and started to climb out rapidly. Its bloodshot eyes were looking at Xiao Chen with killing intent. Its baleful aura surged to the sky. It opened its huge mouth, and a boundless cold chi surged and gathered in its mouth. The wind blew strongly, and it started to turn cold. Despite the bright sun shining down, it actually started snowing. The cold wind and the snowflakes were like knives, cutting Xiao Chen's face. It was incredibly painful. Xiao Chen could not help but squint his eyes, preventing the snowflakes from entering. Fu Si. A cold and raw-killing intent locked on Xiao Chen. A dazzling string of ice fired out from the ice ape's mouth. This string of ice was compressed to the extreme, becoming as fine as a needle. Xiao Chen felt the threat of death. At that moment, he wanted to take out the Eastern Emperor Bell. However, he remembered his earlier misgivings and did not use it in the end. Heavenly Lightning Shield. An electrical light flickered around Xiao Chen as a jinn-shaped shield of lightning surrounded Xiao Chen. However, the string of ice as thick as a needle directly pierced through the Heavenly Lightning Shield, leaving a tiny hole that could not be seen with the naked eye. The heavenly lightning shield slowly dispersed, blood spurted out of Xiao Chen's chest. Xiao Chen looked at his wound strangely. The string of ice was so small, when it pierced through his body, he did not even feel any pain. The wound on his chest was incredibly small, but the blood flowed out like a guzzling tap, spurting out vigorously. Xiao Chen turned pale, and he knelt on one knee, supporting himself with the lunar shadow saber. He took out a blood-replenishing pill and swallowed it immediately. Then he took out another blood-replenishing pill and crushed it before spreading it on his wound. However, the proven and tested blood-replenishing pill did not work this time. There was a cold chi curling around the wound in his chest, preventing the flesh from growing back. The ice ape seemed to have expended all his energy when he fired out this string of ice. He stood in his original spot and rested for a long time. Only after that did it recover and leap high into the air with its four limbs, rushing at Xiao Chen from the air. Xiao Chen's pale face revealed a determined look. He threw out a golden sculpture and the golden lion king appeared out of nowhere. A creature the size of a small mountain pinned the ice ape to the ground. The golden lion king used its stout front legs to stomp violently on the huge ice ape. The ice ape struggled constantly. After some time, the ice ape finally stopped struggling. Xiao Chen extended out a strand of spiritual sense, releasing his breath only after he verified it was dead. The wound on his chest was now bleeding slowly. After using the blood-replenishing pill, it recovered slightly. It was no longer as bad as it was earlier. Xiao Chen tore out a piece of cloth from his clothes and wrapped it around its wound. Then, he walked to the side of the ice ape. Seeing the ice ape covered in wounds, Xiao Chen took out a sharp knife and cut its body from the side. He discovered its internal organs were extremely damaged. There was even some remnant electricity. It seems like the real reason it died was a result of the 10-odd rank 3 lightning attributed talismans, Xiao Chen said indifferently before taking out the peak quality ice attributed spirit core. Just at this moment, there was the sound of wind breaking. A resplendent sword chi was fired violently at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen unhurriedly put away the spirit core into the universe ring and laughed to himself indifferently, "You finally made a move." Although Xiao Chen had scanned the area multiple times with his spiritual sense, he did not detect anyone following him. Even so, Xiao Chen kept an eye out. He knew there was definitely someone following him. Thus, at the crucial point of the fight against the ice ape, he kept some of his trump cards hidden. If it were not for the final moment being very dire, he would not have used the Golden Lion King. Dang! The Eastern Emperor bell rang softly and flew out of Xiao Chen's body. It floated above his head as it released a dark yellow chi downwards. The sword chi coming from behind him was blocked and disappeared into nothing. Xiao Chen leapt up onto the head of the Golden Lion King and quietly watched the approaching person. An old man slowly walked over. This was the martial saint the Zhang clan head gave orders to. He was called Chong Kun, the first guest elder of Yunyang City's Zhang clan. He had cultivated to the realm of medial grade martial saint. After a cultivator cultivated to martial saint, every increase in realm would result in an increase of strength by multiple times. A medial grade martial saint was able to fight evenly with 10 inferior grade martial saints. When Chong Kun saw the Eastern Emperor bell above Xiao Chen's head and saw the huge Golden Lion King he was standing on, his expression changed to one of caution. Along the way, this youth had given him too many surprises. If he had not cultivated a technique that allowed him to hide his aura, he would have already been discovered by this youth on multiple occasions. When he saw Xiao Chen summon the Golden Lion King, he was very astonished. He did not expect Xiao Chen to have another strong defensive secret treasure. "Is this your trump card?" His voice was very soft but very clear. He stood quietly where he originally stood, naturally giving off a surging aura. Even with the Eastern Emperor bell and the Golden Lion King, Xiao Chen did not dare be careless. Pu Kai. When competing regarding aura, Xiao Chen definitely held the disadvantage. Xiao Chen did not wish to waste too much time fighting against him. With just a thought, the Golden Lion King spat out a golden flame at Chong Kun. Kai. A wave of sword chi sliced across, and the golden flame was sliced into two halves, flying off to the two sides. Shua. Chong Kun's figure disappeared and reappeared beside Xiao Chen like a ghost. His sword flashed and appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. Dang! Another strand of dark yellow chi flowed down from the Eastern Emperor bell above. Before Xiao Chen could react, it had automatically blocked the sword. Dang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Chong Kun sent out hundreds of sword strikes. His speed had reached its peak, but it was blocked by the dark yellow chi of the Eastern Emperor bell every time. The Eastern Emperor bell lived up to its name as the human race's strongest defensive secret treasure. Even though its formation markings were completely damaged, it was still so mighty. Xiao Chen revealed a calm expression as he shouted out lightly. Dang! Dang! The Eastern Emperor bell gave off a long chime. As an indistinct ringing sounded, ripples spread out into the surroundings. Chong Kun was knocked flying by this ripple. When the bell rang out, Xiao Chen felt giddy. He could not help but feel astonished. He quickly stopped the long chime of the bell. A damaged secret weapon could not be used properly, after all. Xiao Chen controlled the Golden Lion King to leap into the air. When the small mountain-sized body landed and pressured Chong Kun, the ground trembled. Chong Kun moved very fast and changed his body posture quickly. While he avoided the attack, he continuously fired resplendent sword chi at Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen, who had the Eastern Emperor bell, was practically undefeatable. Streams of dark yellow chi fell from above, blocking all the attacks coming his way. Mountain-breaking chop. Suddenly, Chong Kun shouted, and his sword's appearance turned ordinary. An Earth-ranked martial technique pierced on the dark yellow chi. As this was an Earth-ranked martial technique executed by a medial-grade martial saint, it was much stronger than Xiao Chen's dragon-seizing hand. Furthermore, all its power was focused at one point. A ripple appeared on the dark yellow chi as the huge force struck it. Xiao Chen was forced backward a few steps on the Golden Lion King's back before he could stabilize himself. Xiao Chen was astonished. The flame in his right eye flickered, and a purple flame came streaming out. The flame spun around and turned into a hurricane, spinning continuously. Chong Kun opened his arms wide and retreated quickly, avoiding the spinning purple flames in an instant. As he slowly landed on the ground, he looked at the Eastern Emperor bell above Xiao Chen's head. He was thinking very hard, but he was unable to understand anything. By controlling the Eastern Emperor bell and Golden Lion King at the same time, the essence in Xiao Chen was gushing out at a rapid speed, flowing out unceasingly. Xiao Chen could not help but feel anxious. Shua. It was unknown why, but the Eastern Emperor bell above his head made a shoot and shrunk back into a small, exquisite copper bell. After that, it dropped into Xiao Chen's hands. What is going on? Xiao Chen started blankly at it. I have definitely repaired it already, only the formation markings have not all been completely recovered yet. I had also placed my mark on it already. Why am I suddenly no longer able to use it? A gleam appeared in Chong Kun's eyes. He moved once again, and a sword light rose up into the sky before chopping down towards Xiao Chen. The situation was dire. Now was not the time for Xiao Chen to think about it. A clap of thunder crackled in the sky. Xiao Chen executed the rushing thunder saber techniques, drawing the saber. The saber exploded out with light, clashing against this sword light. Bang! Xiao Chen's body was blasted backward and landed heavily on the ground. Then he rolled over continuously on the ground. The wound on his chest opened. It was extremely painful. There were no more opportunities. An inferior grade martial grand master challenging a medial grade martial saint was simply just seeking death. Xiao Chen lay on the ground smiling bitterly to himself. I originally thought with the Eastern Emperor bell and the Golden Lion King, there would be a chance. Only after fighting the battle did he realize his error. His opponent's speed was way faster than him. The Golden Lion King was not even able to touch him. Just by this, the opponent was practically undefeatable already. However, knowing someone was following him, his purpose was achieved. Xiao Chen thought to himself, this person is not carrying a Saber City identity token. This most important thing was this person used a sword. That is to say, this person was not sent by Zhe Yunbin. At least it was not the worst case scenario. Go berserk. Xiao Chen gave this order in his heart. The Golden Lion King immediately gave off a boundless baleful aura. Its speed increased significantly. It delayed Chong Kun, preventing him from chasing after Xiao Chen. Lightning descent. Xiao Chen used another inferior grade spirit stone. His essence was immediately refilled. Before he left, he summoned out a lightning descent, continuously harassing Chong Kun. The power of the lightning descent could be considered to be negligible to a medial grade martial saint. However, he would be unable to avoid getting hit and cause him some pain. He was currently busy fighting the Golden Lion King. He did not have the time to avoid a bolt of lightning. Soon, he was struck by several bolts of lightning. His skin turned black, and all the hair on his body stood on its ends. He looked like he was in an extremely sorry state. Chong Kun was irritated till he was seething with anger. However, he could not do anything to Xiao Chen. The speed of this huge Golden Lion King had increased significantly, tying him up completely. He was not able to spend any effort dealing with Xiao Chen. Time is almost up. The berserk Golden Lion King will not be able to last any longer. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. A silver warship appeared, and he leapt up onto it, leaving gracefully. Before he left, he took a look at the Golden Lion King. He felt it was a pity. After the Golden Lion King went berserk, there would be no way to use it again. It would be very difficult to find quality materials for carving. Back in Saber City, Xiao Chen returned to his courtyard and sat down cross-legged. He circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation continuously. The tiny wound on his chest had not recovered yet. There was some cold chi preventing it from healing. If he were not able to disperse the cold chi, Xiao Chen would die of excessive loss of blood sooner or later. After advancing to become a martial Grand Master, the clear pool of water in his dantian turned into a gushing river. The little azure dragon had also become significantly larger, and was swimming around in the water. Xiao Chen could clearly feel the essence provided by the gushing river was not only significantly more abundant, but was also a lot purer. He circulated the essence in his body in a great cycle before finally he carefully sent it to the wound on his chest. A strand of cold chi wafted out from the wound. Xiao Chen's expression became joyful. He could finally expel this cold chi. Otherwise, Xiao Chen did not have any other ideas and could only have sullenly bled to death. However, Xiao Chen was surprised, as the cold chi contained in the tiny wound was much more than he had expected. He circulated his essence for 2 days and 2 nights, without eating or drinking, before he managed to force all the cold chi out. Xiao Chen got up and felt like his entire body was on the verge of collapsing. He walked over to the wooden bed step by step and fell onto it face down, falling asleep immediately. Xiao Chen slept for 20 hours before he finally awoke, feeling much more refreshed and spirited. He was so hungry, his stomach rumbled. After he finished washing up, he quickly searched for an inn to deal with this hunger. Within the inn, Xiao Chen started thinking about the details of his task. To begin with, this task was clearly not of a reasonable level of difficulty. Furthermore, he was sure that the mysterious martial saint was not Zhe Yunban's man. Xiao Chen thought of the intense competition for the intersect spot and thought of a possibility. Could it be that because there were limited spots, Zhe Yunban wanted me to give up due to the difficulty, but there were still some people who wanted the matter to be settled for sure, and decided to deal with it themselves. The more he thought about it, the more possible Xiao Chen felt it was. Xiao Chen pounded on the table heavily, smiling coldly to himself. I want to see who is messing around behind the scenes. After he paid his bill, Xiao Chen quickly made his way to the city lord residence. The cultivator guarding the gate recognized Xiao Chen, and after he reported it, he brought Xiao Chen in. The city lord was entertaining an important guest like before and temporarily could not meet with him. The guard could only place him in the secondary hall to wait. Xiao Chen only smiled faintly and didn't say anything. When that person left, he immediately took out a carving of a little bird from the universe ring. Xiao Chen executed the life bestowal spell and the little bird fluttered around for a while before flying out the door. Xiao Chen attached his spiritual sense to it and controlled the little bird to circle around the city lord residence. Finally, he found Zhe Yunban in the Great Hall. Within the Great Hall, Zhe Yunban was speaking with the Yunyang City's Zhang clan head. The Zhang clan head smiled faintly. City Lord Zhe, this immortal cloud life extending pill is not an ordinary immortal cloud life extending pill. There are many rare yellow springs grasses that are mixed in it. It can extend your lifespan by 40 years. TL note. Yellow springs is another word for the Chinese underworld, Hades, hell. So it makes sense that this has effects on lifespan. Brother Zhang, my cultivation has already been stuck at peak martial saint since long ago. However, City Lord Zhe, you are a peak martial king. With another 40 years of lifespan, your chances of eventually becoming a martial emperor would be significantly increased. Once you become a martial emperor, your lifespan would increase by another 100 years. Zhang clan. Xiao Chen frowned. Is that the Yunyang city's Zhang clan? With just a thought, Xiao Chen carefully controlled the bird to get nearer. When Zhe Yunbin heard this, he smiled slightly. Old Zhang, just relax, he will back off after realizing the difficulty. It is impossible for him to complete the task I've given him. The Zhang clan head snorted coldly. I have received news that that person has already completed the task that the city lord gave him. Zhe Yunbin's expression changed. He placed the teacup from his hand heavily onto the table. He said in a sullen voice, Old Zhang, you are aware that this is someone Miss Feng recommended. You dare to mess around with him. Old Zhang smiled lightly. City lord, don't worry. Naturally, I would not dare to mess around with someone Miss Feng recommended. The businesses that are flourishing in Yunyang City have some dealings with the Feng clan. How would I dare to break off these ties? Zhe Yunbin's expression relaxed, and he said slowly, as long as you know. However, this way, things become difficult for me. The quotas set by the inner sector are very strict because the resource allocations are very precise. If Leng Tianyu had not aired this time, there would not have been a spot at Tianyu Peak. Seeing the peak-grade Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill on the table, a fire was lit in Zhe Yunbin's eyes. He was now already 120 years old, his lifespan was running short. This Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill held a deathly attraction for him. He had been stuck at the peak of Martial King for many years already. If he was not able to advance to become a Martial Emperor, he would end up becoming a speck of dust, his progress on the road of cultivation would stop. To most people, a martial king was someone that everyone looked up to. For a regular person to become a martial saint, that was already something to give credit for. However, Zhe Yunbin knew this was not considered much. The stronger he grew, the more insignificant he felt. On account of the increasing reluctance to leave the world, the more one struggled on the long journey of cultivation, and the more one would be unwilling to end up as dust, forgotten by people 100 years later. Zhe Yunbin had a sullen expression. After thinking for a long time, he sighed before finally saying, I can only place this person in Qingyan Peak. I will leave the spot in Tianyu Peak for your grandson. When the Zhang clan head heard this, he revealed an expression of joy. He smiled and said, Thank you for all your troubles, I shall take my leave first and wait for your news. When the Zhang clan head left, Zhe Yunbin kept fiddling around with the jade bottle containing the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill. His face was full of smiles. When he got up and left the Great Hall, Xiao Chen quickly controlled the small bird to follow him quietly. After a moment, he arrived at his bedroom and opened the jade bottle, inspecting it carefully. City Lord, the person recommended by Miss Feng has already been waiting in the secondary hall for a long time. The voice of a cultivator sounded outside the door. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. He actually only reported my arrival to the city lord after I waited here for this long. When he remembered he waited for such a long time the last time, he could not help but grow angrier. Zhe Yunbin frowned slightly, just as I started to appraise this. He actually picked this timing to come. I can only deal with appraising this later. He placed the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill on the table and opened the door. Let's go. After he left, Xiao Chen noticed Zhe Yunbin left the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill behind in the room, as he was in a rush. Should I just take it? Damn it, this fellow nearly caused me to die. Why should I be so nice to him? Xiao Chen made a decision in his heart and did not hesitate to control the small bird to fly in through the ventilation hole. After the small bird entered, it immediately grabbed the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill on the table and flew out. Xiao Chen was a little anxious. He was afraid someone would see the bird, so he controlled the bird to fly very high. Afterwards, the small bird landed safely back in Xiao Chen's hands. Xiao Chen quickly released the spell and then placed the wooden bird sculpture and the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill in the universe ring. After he had done all this, the door of the secondary hall opened. Zhe Yunbin walked in with a smile adorning his face. He walked in with great strides and said, Nephew Yi Chen, have you finished your task? Xiao Chen was mildly astonished, but there were no changes to the expression on his face. He got up and bowed. Greetings, Senior City Lord. This junior has not disgraced you and managed to kill a rank 5 Ice Ape. After he spoke, he took out the Ice Ape corpse. Jie Yunbin's complexion changed. Although he already knew of this from the Zhang clan head, now that he's seen it for himself, he scarcely dared to believe it. A superior grade martial master actually managed to kill a rank 5 spirit beast, how unbelievable. He looked at Xiao Chen again and his eyes lit up. Xiao Chen was actually now an inferior grade martial grand master. My eyes are failing me already. I only just realized nephew has advanced to martial grand master. Congratulations. Jie Yunbin looked at Xiao Chen and smiled faintly. He felt it was unfortunate, as this person could possibly be a genius. Xiao Chen conducted himself with etiquette as he said humbly, I have to thank Senior for this. If it were not for the fight with the rank 5 spirit beast, I would not have advanced to become a martial grand master. Jie Yunbin was stunned. Even an experienced person like him was not able to tell that this was an act put on by Xiao Chen. He thought that Xiao Chen was sincerely thanking him. He smiled in an embarrassed manner. There is no need to thank me. Being able to break through is the result of your own effort. You can keep the spirit beast corpse. Wait for a while, I will get someone to send you to Lingyun mountain range. He now felt some complicated feelings and did not check the spirit beast corpse carefully. He called someone over and said, bring this little brother to the Lingyun mountain range. Send him to Qingyan Peak and bring my identity token as well. When this person heard the words, Qingyan Peak, he showed an obvious expression of astonishment. He received Jie Yunbin's gold identity token before he reacted. Very well, Brother Yi, please follow me. This was already the second time Xiao Chen had heard of Qingyan Peak. He had already made some guesses about it. Now that he saw this person's expression, he was now sure Qingyan Peak was not a very good place. However, now was not a convenient time to question this. He followed that person out and chatted with him. His name was Tangding Tian, and he was the vice house steward of the city lord residence. He held a lot of authority in Saber City. It would not be too far-fetched to say there were few above him. However, he was very humble and he explained the things Xiao Chen needed to pay note to when in the inner sect. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion inner sect was divided into 7 branches, distributed on the 7 peaks of the Lingyun mountain range. The 7 branches were situated on the peaks. The requirements each peak master had for disciples were different. The saber techniques and movement techniques they learned were different as well. Aside from the pavilion master, the ones who had the most authority in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion were the peak masters of the various branches. Aside from them there was the Law Enforcement Hall, Elders Assembly, and some other organizations. Tangding Tian also informed Xiao Chen of the various forbidden grounds in the inner sect. He was not to enter those places or else the consequences would be very grave. Regardless of how big his backing was, the Law Enforcement Hall would not show any mercy. After a while, Xiao Chen and Tangding Tian got more familiar with each other. He asked about the doubts in his heart. Steward Tang, can you explain the situation of Qingyan Peak in more detail? Xiao Chen had discovered that, although Tangding Tian spoke a lot, he had avoided the topics relating to the place Xiao Chen was going to, Qingyan Peak. Tangding Tian suddenly stopped speaking and then smiled awkwardly afterwards. The city lord probably didn't tell you, so I did not dare to tell you directly. Let's put it this way. Of the 7 peaks in Lingyun mountain range, its strength is the lowest, but it has the least amount of competition. Lowest strength. Xiao Chen smiled to himself. That was not a problem. Looking at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's situation, the strength of the peak master was at least a martial king. No matter how he instructed Xiao Chen, it would be more than sufficient. Then what about Tianyu Peak? What is their strength like? Xiao Chen continued asking. Tangding Tian did not hesitate as he answered, out of the 7 peaks, the strongest is Tianyu Peak. Furthermore, the competition is intense. It is indeed like that. Xiao Chen smiled to himself, or else, it would not be worth an Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill. However, the Immortal Cloud Life Extending Pill is not in his hands. I wonder what kind of expression Jie Yunbin will make when he finds out. In the backyard of the city lord residence, Tang Dingtian slowly stopped and took out Zhe Yunban's identity token, and then flashed it at nothing in particular. After a while, to Xiao Chen's surprise, a sparkling and translucent ship appeared on the ground. There were layers of fog around it. A spiritual influence could be felt, and there was pleasant music coming from somewhere. It sounded very celestial. This was a secret treasure that had its Taos completely preserved. Although it was not an offensive type secret treasure, it was still very shocking. The ancient era was more than 20,000 years ago. For it to be able to be completely preserved, it could be considered a miracle. Xiao Chen thought of his own Eastern Emperor Bel and he felt depressed. Even up until now, he did not know what was wrong with it. Tang Dingtian was very satisfied with Xiao Chen's shocked appearance. He said, "Let's go." The two of them boarded the ship. Tang Dingtian threw the golden identity token onto the top of the ship. Then it stopped quietly and continued spinning in the air. A stream of golden aura was emitted by it. The ship was not a personal item of Zhe Yunban. Thus it was not as convenient to control as compared to Xiao Chen's silver warship. After a while, the formation markings on the ship started moving. The ship gave off a multicolored light. The pleasing melodious sound of music instruments rang out once again. The ship soared into the sky with a "su" sound. Tang Dingtian led Xiao Chen into the inside of the ship. The rooms inside were all made of white jade and they were fully furnished with tables and chairs. There was some food that was prepared already placed there. Xiao Chen picked up the jade wine bottle and thought of his empty silver warship. He could not help but sigh. What a big difference. The two of them drank wine and ate as they chatted. After they flew for a long time, it felt as though Xiao Chen had passed through a barrier of restrictions. There was a huge pressure pressing on him. He quickly circulated his essence to resist. When Tang Dingtian saw the situation, he quickly stopped Xiao Chen, saying, "Relax, don't resist. This is just the first layer of restrictions. There are 19 more later, each stronger than the last. If you resist them, you will die." Xiao Chen was frightened until cold sweat appeared. He quickly stopped circulating his energy and resisting. After a while, he felt better. After more series of other restrictions, Tang Dingtian got up and said, "Let's go, we have arrived." The two of them walked out of the hold of the ship. When they stood at the helm, they saw white clouds floating around them. Xiao Chen looked down and a magnificent scene appeared before him, causing him to feel very astonished. They were surrounded by tall and upright mountains. Occasionally, there would be birds flying past in the clouds. When Xiao Chen looked carefully, there were people riding on a lot of them. Some of them recognized Tang Dingtian and would flash him a smile when they went by. When Xiao Chen looked around the surroundings, above the clouds there were many patches of forest filling the mountain, hiding many exquisite ancient wooden buildings. There were also many solitary peaks rising up from the ground, rising into the sky. It was unknown how tall they were, but it was a magnificent sight. Below the ship, there was a flat and smooth platform. It was actually a huge peak that was flattened by humans. On the platform, there were many tall halls. The area of land occupied was almost as big as a small city. Tang Dingtian smiled faintly. This is the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's heaven viewing platform. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's main hall is located here. It can be considered the core area of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Now, we have to go and register your information. The ship brought the two of them down slowly as they headed to the east side of the heaven viewing platform. The platform was bustling. Now that they were nearer, Xiao Chen could feel the huge size of the heaven viewing platform. The ship stopped in front of a pavilion. Xiao Chen looked in front and he saw an ancient wooden signboard. The words, "Returning Cloud Hall," were written on it. The two of them jumped down from the ship. After Tang Dingtian showed Zhe Yunban's golden identity token, they were able to move about unobstructed. Many people here recognized Tang Dingtian. Tang Dingtian had a faint smile on his face as he greeted everyone. The inside of the pavilion was very large. There were very few people in there, making it look very cold and cheerless. Xiao Chen followed behind Tang Dingtian as he looked curiously at the decorations of the returning Cloud Hall. There were many martial scriptures carved on the wall. Xiao Chen felt like this broadened his horizons. The wooden wall was actually full of profound ranked martial techniques. There were even a few earth-ranked martial techniques. Brother Tang, are you here to duel with me again? After losing the last time, you still have not paid up the wine you owe me. There was a forthright voice coming from the front as a male dressed in green walked over slowly. Tang Dingtian smiled embarrassedly. Brother Lu Chen's memory is great. I am here for business this time. City Lord Zhe wants to recommend someone. After he spoke, he handed Zhe Yunban's golden identity token to Lu Chen. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion identity token not only indicated one's identity, but also their position. An ordinary person in Saber City would have a wooden token, an outer disciple would have an iron token, an inner sect disciple would have a silver token, and a core disciple would have a platinum token. As for the golden token, that was something that only someone of the peak master level would have. There were many uses of the identity token. Sometimes a situation where people recognized the token rather than the person could occur. By handing his token over to Tang Dingtian, it was equivalent to Zhe Yunban coming personally. Tang Dingtian's words could be considered to be his words. Oh. Lu Chen received the golden token and inspected it carefully. After a while, he looked at Xiao Chen, who was behind Tang Dingtian, and said, the person he is introducing is this younger brother. Tang Dingtian nodded and made introductions. This is Lu Chen, the hall master here. He is the youngest returning Cloud Hall's hall master in history. This is Yi Chen, the cultivator the Feng clan introduced. Xiao Chen stepped forward and looked at Lu Chen. Xiao Chen was astonished. Lu Chen's handsome face looked like he was not more than 30 years old. However, the feeling he gave Xiao Chen was very horrifying. Xiao Chen was not able to measure his strength. Yi Chen greets hall master. Lu Chen nodded his head while smiling. He asked, the city lord wants to recommend him to Tianyu Peak, right? I recall only Tianyu Peak has an empty spot. Let me record it down here. Tang Dingtian had a stunned expression and he then said awkwardly, this. The city lord recommended Qingyan Peak, not Tianyu Peak. Hearing this, Lu Chen also had a stunned expression. However, he quickly reacted and said, Qingyan Peak, right. That's not bad too. Senior sister Ruyu came back and asked for people a couple of days ago. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he followed behind the two of them, before arriving at a room. This room was filled with rows of books. Each bookcase was higher than a regular bookcase, they were more than 4 meters high. There were all sorts of serial numbers carved on the bookshelf. Lu Chen walked in and spread his palm open, and a black book slowly floated down. Tang Dingtian handed over Xiao Chen's information. Lu Chen took a look and smiled, reaching inferior grade martial grand master at the age of 16. His talent is not bad. I think elder sister Yuru will be satisfied this time. After the registration was complete, Lu Chen led the two of them to the top of the returning Cloud Hall. He said to Xiao Chen, the making of the identity token will require 2 days. I will send someone to bring it to Qingyan Peak. On the top floor, Lu Chen released a messenger pigeon. Tang Dingtian stood at the side and explained to Xiao Chen, this is for informing the Peak Master of Qingyan Peak to send someone over to pick you up. The three of them were all very patient. They stood there quietly waiting. After a while, a green bird flew over from the sky. There was a good-looking woman riding on it. Xiao Chen could only see a blurry figure while he stood below. However, he could feel this woman was very outstanding. Lu Chen looked at the sky and smiled faintly, they are arriving. There was a melodious cry as the green bird slowly landed on the roof. A woman wearing tight-fitting long green robes nimbly jumped off the green bird. The tight-fitting long robe made the woman's hot and exquisite figure very obvious. Her long face covered her shoulders. Her warm face gave off the feel of a mature woman, there was none of a young girl's naivety. As Xiao Chen watched the woman arrive leisurely, Xiao Chen praised her in his heart. Just based on her figure and pretty face, she would be the idol of guys in his previous life. TL notes. The guys referred to here are the otakus. I just felt that this, being a Japanese word, felt out of place in a Chinese novel. Xiao Chen was astonished that the identity token at her waist was actually an eye-catching gold. However, she was definitely not any older than 20. Although her strength was at medial grade martial saint, she was definitely far from the usual standard of a peak master. However, there would be no one who would dare to simply carry around someone else's identity token. Could it be that this woman was really the peak master of Qingyan Peak? Just as Xiao Chen was feeling suspicious, the woman walked over quickly. After she took a look at Xiao Chen, she went over to Lu Chen's side and started reading through Xiao Chen's information. Yi Chen, 16 years old, inferior grade martial grand master. The woman read out in a melodious voice. Then she said to Lu Chen in a sullen voice, "Junior brother Lu Chen, are you trying to mislead me? Every time I come to you for people, you mess around." Lu Chen smiled. "No. Senior sister Ruyu, I assure you I am not this time. This is the person the Feng clan recommended. City Lord arranged for him to be in Qingyan Peak. Feng Feishui recommended him," Lu Yuyu said in a soft voice. A flash of light appeared in her clear eyes before she carefully sized Xiao Chen up. Just at this moment, Xiao Chen sensed a sharp killing intent extending towards him. This killing intent rushed at him in a straightforward manner. Shua. The saber flashed. Under Xiao Chen's astonished gaze, Lu Ruyu's 2-finger-wide and 1-meter-long saber was suddenly pulled out of her scabbard. The saber carried a cold light as it slashed over quickly. Lu Ruyu's speed was very fast. Xiao Chen only saw a flash of cold light and the blade had already arrived before him. There was no time to think. Xiao Chen bent over backwards, bending both his knees and throwing his body backwards. The saber sliced past in front of Xiao Chen's face. A few strands of hair instantly fell slowly toward the ground. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and executed the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art. He flew backwards and took the opportunity of this chance to draw the lunar shadow saber from its scabbard. Lu Ruyu saw Xiao Chen's speedy reaction and her pupils constricted. There was a flash of shock in her eyes. She shouted lightly and the saber in her hands buzzed. The sound was extremely pleasing, reverberating in the air. Up on the roof, everyone's weapons could not help but start vibrating. Xiao Chen used all his might to prevent the lunar shadow saber from struggling out of his hand. He thought in astonishment, listening to the sword and communicating with it. Listening to the sword and communicating with it, again. This was the second person Xiao Chen had met in Zaihe province to have grasped the saber to this realm. However, it was very obvious Lu Ruyu's listening to the sword and communicating with it was significantly stronger than Leng Liasu's. Back when he fought with Leng Liasu, his weapon did not have such a large reaction. In the instant Xiao Chen was astonished, Lu Ruyu's body flashed and arrived before Xiao Chen. The saber in her hand chopped mercilessly down at Xiao Chen. Dang! 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 Xiao Chen brandished his saber to block the attacks. Metallic clanging rang out continuously. Lu Ruyu's speed increased, faster and faster. Slowly, Xiao Chen came to a point where he could only see a vague image of a saber. He could only rely on his feelings and continuously use drawing the saber. What a fast saber! Xiao Chen thought in astonishment. This should be the result of Lu Ruyu suppressing her strength. The strength behind the saber was controlled to within what Xiao Chen could withstand. Xiao Chen had never seen such a fast use of the saber before. The opponent did not use any complicated saber techniques. She used the simplest combinations of sweep, hack, push, parry, skim, swing, chop, and pierce. These were the 8 basic movements when using a saber. However, it was all it took to completely render Xiao Chen incapable of retaliating. Using drawing the saber was all he could do. However, in order to execute drawing the saber, he had to constantly keep his focus at its peak. Furthermore, each time he executed drawing the saber, the momentum he had just began would collapse immediately. This was the weak point of the rushing thunder saber technique. As it stood, Xiao Chen was rapidly exhausting his energy, whereas Lu Ruyu did not even seem tired at all. The saber in her hand had never stopped moving from beginning to end. Huang. After a moment, Lu Ruyu withdrew her saber and stood upright. Her graceful face revealed a satisfied smile. She said, "Reflexes are good, but basics are not firm enough. I can tell he is not too experienced." After she spoke, she walked up to Xiao Chen. Her lily-white hands headed for Xiao Chen's face to pinch it. Xiao Chen was already very tired, but when he saw what was happening, he managed to find some strength from somewhere and retreated backward by a huge step. He moved extremely fast, almost belying that he was tired. Lu Chen and Tang Dingtian, who were at the side, could not help but laugh. Lu Chen hurriedly said, "Little brother Yi Chen, don't be nervous. Senior sister is only going to test your bone age." Testing the bone age was something many sects did. The main reason was to prevent someone from reporting a fake age and tricking the sect. Xiao Chen sweated heavily, knowing he had overreacted. Anyone who saw it would have laughed at him. A light flashed in Lu Ruyu's eyes. She did not mind Xiao Chen's reaction and walked over again. This time, when she tried to test his bone age, he did not move, he just stood at his original spot and let her do what she wanted. Lu Ruyu's hands started rubbing Xiao Chen's upper body's bones in a regular pattern. At such a close distance, the woman's indistinct scent was picked up by Xiao Chen's nose. This caused Xiao Chen's mental state to be disordered, and he did not even dare to breathe. After a moment, Lu Ruyu withdrew her hands, revealing a faint smile on her face. He is indeed 16 years old. A 16 years old martial grand master, slightly inferior to me when I was that age, but it's passable. Yi Chen, right. Call me master. Xiao Chen's head was dotted with cold sweat as he felt a headache coming on. Now that he had entered the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he had to be apprenticed to a master. However, Xiao Chen had not expected his master to be a woman who did not appear to be much older than himself. Seeing that Xiao Chen was speechless, Lu Ruyu frowned. She said very fiercely, "Are you not willing? Since you are not willing, then don't come to my Qingyan Peak. The consequences of making me make this trip for nothing is quite severe, and even Feng Feishui will not be able to protect you." Lu Ruyu's right hand was on the handle of her saber, the look on her face revealing killing intent. She was ready to draw her saber at any time. Xiao Chen was speechless. This woman was too headstrong. There was a smile on Lu Chen's handsome face as he slowly walked over and said, "Yi Chen, you don't have to worry. If you enter Qingyan Peak, your advantages will not be any less than in the other peaks. Furthermore, with senior sister Ruyu's strength, there should be no issue in her teaching you. In the future, if you become a core disciple, you can enter the Divine Saber Camp as well. The most important thing is that senior sister Ruyu is the acting peak master. If you become her disciple, in terms of seniority, you would be equivalent to Brother Tang." Xiao Chen smiled bitterly to himself, thinking, there are quite a lot of benefits. However, it feels like something is wrong. This Lu Ruyu was only older than him by a few years, which was something he found difficult to accept. He could not help but lower his head. When he did so, he saw the lunar shadow saber out of the corner of his eyes. His chest could not help but tighten as the thought hit him, I have already left Mohe City for about half a year already. However, the reason why I left was so I can release the seal on Ao Jiao. This is a great opportunity, and Lu Ruyu has comprehended listening to the sword and communicating with it. Accepting her as my master is a good choice. After Xiao Chen thought of this, he knelt on the ground on one knee and stated decisively, Disciple Yi Chen sincerely acknowledges the Qingyan Peak Master, Lu Ruyu, as his master. Would master accept me? Actually, Xiao Chen had a plan in mind. Since he was using a fake identity and had changed his appearance, he could always deny everything whenever he wanted to by changing back. The killing intent on Lu Ruyu's graceful face slowly vanished, relaxing into a warm smile. Her expression turned solemn as she said, I, Qingyan Peak's acting peak master, Lu Ruyu, accept you, Yi Chen, as my disciple. I will do my best to teach and guide you seriously. After she spoke, Lu Ruyu helped Xiao Chen get up. Then she looked at Lu Chen and Tang Dingtian and said, You two are my Qingyan Peak's witnesses. Lu Chen smiled faintly, Don't worry, I will immediately make changes to Yi Chen's information as well as remake his identity token. Tang Dingtian took out a short saber from his spatial ring and handed it to Xiao Chen. Congratulations, Brother Yi, for entering Qingyan Peak. Consider this short sword a congratulatory present for accepting a master. Xiao Chen received the short sword and grabbed the handle, drawing it out of the scabbard slowly. There was a cold gleam on the saber, and it was actually an earth-ranked spirit weapon. This Tang Dingtian was really generous. Lu Ruyu turned to Lu Chen and smiled. Steward Tang has given him an earth-ranked spirit weapon. Junior brother Lu, shouldn't you express some goodwill as well? Lu Chen took out a book and smiled faintly. I can tell the aura in your body is not stable, flowing chaotically. It is likely you have learned too many things and are unable to merge them all together. Read this flowing cloud scripture when you have time. It should be beneficial to you. Xiao Chen quickly expressed his gratitude and received it. This flowing cloud scripture was a very valuable item, and he had heard of it before. It was derived from the ancient martial scriptures. It was very famous, and the last thing he expected was to receive a handwritten copy of the flowing cloud scripture right upon acknowledging a master. It was very surprising. Lu Ruyu helped Xiao Chen up the green bird and bid her farewell to the two of them. Then, the green bird flapped its wings vigorously, kicking up a huge gust as they soared into the sky. Tang Dingtian watched on as the two of them left. Brother Lu, I must say, you are very generous. Normally, whenever I wanted to borrow your flowing cloud scripture to take a look, you would give me all sorts of excuses not to. Today, you've actually given it away in such a straightforward manner. Lu Chen turned around and smiled. You are no better than me. That saber is Jade Hook, originating from the Clear Sky sect. And that is no ordinary Earth-ranked spirit weapon. TL note. When I looked at a dictionary for Jade Hook Goyu, it gave me Magatama, a Japanese curved bead. I decided to separate the two words and translate them individually instead, thus obtaining Jade Hook. Tang Dingtian sighed and said, I felt it was unfortunate given his talent. Not only did he have Miss Feng's recommendation letter, he even killed a rank 5 spirit beast to obtain the qualification to enter the inner sect. I really have no idea what Zhe Yunbin was thinking when he sent him to Qingyan Peak. It feels very strange. Lu Chen revealed an expression of shock. He said, he killed a rank 5 spirit beast alone. He is only an inferior grade martial grand master. How is this possible? Tang Dingtian turned back and looked at him, then this is going to shock you even more. At the time he killed the rank 5 spirit beast, he was only a superior grade martial master. He only advanced in cultivation realm after that. Lu Chen's complexion changed. But after a while, he smiled in a carefree manner. Tang Dingtian did not understand what was going on. He said, let's go, I'll treat you to a drink later. The green bird soared high into the sky. Xiao Chen sat behind Lu Ruyu. Eventually, he spoke up, Master, can I ask you a question? Lu Ruyu smiled faintly and said, when there is no one around, just address me as elder sister Ruyu, just as Feng Feishui does. I am not that much older than you, so I won't bully you too much. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. That solved one of his mysteries. He finally understood why Lu Ruyu felt inclined to take him under her wing as her disciple on their first meeting. It was mostly because she knew Feng Feishui. I would like to ask, how many inner disciples does Qingyan Peak have? How many elders are there? How many disciples does elder sister Ruyu have? Xiao Chen had some doubts about this long ago. Now that he had the chance to ask, he did not hesitate to. Lu Ruyu turned her head around and asked in a strange manner, you do not know? Don't tell me you entered Qingyan Peak without knowing anything. Suddenly, Xiao Chen had a bad feeling. He smiled bitterly, that is indeed the case, I am now entering Qingyan Peak without knowing anything. Lu Ruyu felt a headache coming on as she said in a sullen voice, before you came, the answer to all these questions was 0. After you came, the answer is now 1. Xiao Chen was frazzled. Although he knew Qingyan Peak was not too formidable, he did not expect it to be so bad to the point where there was no one. Lu Ruyu smiled, this is also the reason why I accepted you as my disciple. Within Qingyan Peak, there is no one else who can teach you. However, you don't have to think about it too much. There are benefits to having less people. You have the Peak Master to teach you personally. There are not many in Heavenly Saber Pavilion with such a privilege. A Peak Master who was not a martial king. The strength of the Outer Sect Master, Zhe Yunbin, was already at Peak Martial King. How could the Peak Master of the Inner Sect be lower? However, Xiao Chen did not mind. After all, he was here to learn how to reach the state of listening to the sword and communicating with it. The state itself had no relation to cultivation realm for the most part, and strength alone did not allow one to grasp it. At the end of the day, talent and comprehension were far more important. To Xiao Chen, a master who was able to perform listening to the sword and communicating with it was sufficient to make up for all the shortcomings of Lu Ruyu. Before long, a towering peak appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. The clouds surrounding it stretched out into the horizon.